All right, so this is the iPhone XS Max, and back there is the iPhone XS. Two completely horrible names that Apple should be completely ashamed of. But anyways, we're here, and by we, I mean Tyler Stallman and myself. But anyways, Tyler is working on a more comprehensive view of the XS Max and XS camera. I'll leave that video down in the description. I'm also doing a collab with the Various Sounds of New York City today. It's a great collaboration. But anyways, this is sort of a first impression. It's not a review, haven't had it for long enough. But first things first, the only real true difference in between the XS and XS Max is obviously the size. For me, I've been getting used to this bigger phone. It's not that bad. It's definitely harder for one-handed usage, but just for true pocketability and use on a daily basis, I haven't been struggling all too much. Now, two things I do want to note about the bigger display. First thing is about apps and optimization. A lot of apps are not fully optimized yet for the bigger screen. One is Instagram, and a bunch of the lesser known apps that I use on a daily basis, they're not quite there yet. They're just a little awkward right now. Now, the second thing with the bigger screen is videos. They look gorgeous. It's not that they don't look gorgeous with the standard 10 or XS. It's just having that bigger screen with, full screen videos shooting 21:9 or 2:1. It looks magnificent. For instance, go check out Jonathan Morrison's past two videos optimized for the XS and XS Max screen. They look great. But you know the deal. It's just a bigger version of the 10, and I'm not complaining. Now let's talk about the other, I guess you could call it marketing ploy used by Apple. It's the new color, the new finish. They call it gold. It's more of a rancid salmon. Not so huge on the back. The rims are gorgeous, a lovely color of gold. It's somewhere in between like a rose gold and a standard gold. It's a lot nicer than that awful pink disaster that was a couple years ago with iPhone. It's definitely better than this past iPhone 8 gold, but it's still not there yet. Keep trying. And of course they still have the silver and the black. Nothing's changed with those. They still look the same, but options. Now the only other thing that has changed on the physical end is actually the texture of the phone. I have actually realized that there's this slightly grippier, slightly more matte finish in between the rim of the phone and the screen of the phone, right in that little gap in there. This looks really awkward. It's slightly matte. It's a weird feeling coming from the 10. You'll know exactly what I'm saying if you're picking this phone up and you've been using the standard 10 for a while. And then even on the rim, it's actually a bit grippier too. So I don't know if this is an attempt to make the phone less slippery, since I know that was an issue with the standard 10, but especially with the bigger side of things, it's a great addition. Now, moving on to two of the bigger points that Apple tried to drive home with this phone. First thing is the camera, and second thing is overall performance. So talking specifically about the camera, obviously I haven't had that much experience and time with it, but the time that I have had with it has been interesting. Now, the two things that sort of stick in my head, first thing is Smart HDR, and building more into that is highlight management. Now, Smart HDR is Apple's term for their HDR processing system. And from what I understand, this is essentially taking a whole bunch of photos, finding the detail in all of those photos, and then stitching them together in one very good looking photo. That's sort of a bastardized version of explaining their very complex process. Now within that, they're of course grabbing a whole lot of information out of the shadows and the highlights. Now, as a lot of you probably know following my Instagram, I love to take photos outdoors of skies and buildings. And the one thing that has sort of been a common theme throughout all smartphones is the fact that when you're taking a photo of such contrasty elements, a building being fairly dark with a lot of shadows and the sky being so bright, obviously you're gonna get a very uneven photo, even with HDR. But using Apple's new software and this new camera on this phone, it's proven some very interesting results. Of course, I need more time to develop a more comprehensive view of this whole entire camera package, but as of right now, I am impressed. Now moving on to the second bigger focused on feature of this iPhone XS Max is performance. I will tell you, performance has actually been pretty great. It's like tasks as simple as, taking a screenshot from Twitter and then sending it to a friend for their comment. Usually with iPhone 10 and previous iPhones, there would be a bit of a stutter where you'd see just a blank screen or you'd see it thinking. Now it is instant. Now obviously over time we'll see if there's any decay in the process and overall performance, but as of right now it's very fast and I do see quite a difference. But those are basically all of the bullet points with this phone and that smaller 10s back there. Essentially, I've seen quite the difference in between the iPhone 10 and 10s Max and 10s. The only other thing that I did actually want to mention, this has to do more so with the ordering process for those of you that haven't ordered the phone yet. I'm sure you could probably do this also after the fact, but there's actually a new tier of Apple Care. It supports theft or loss. So if you drop your phone in the ocean or some meanie bobini steals your phone, you're covered. I just realized that I said meanie bobini on camera. Now it is slightly more expensive. I think it's $100 more. But if you're someone who thinks you're either gonna lose your phone or have your phone stolen, that is an option. But anyways, those are my basic first impressions of the 10s Max and the 10s. I will be making a full review, of course, later on down the road. Make sure you stay tuned for that. And again, Tyler Stallman's review or first impressions of the camera, I will leave that down in the description as well. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned and take it easy. Bye.